the counterintuitive thinking of the Jews, getting rich from failure and weakness. Once, I was sitting at a street-side cafe with a very unusual guest. An elderly Jewish man, traveling, had serendipitously wandered into a small eatery in Hanoi. We chatted about everything, from the humid, watery weather of the old quarter to the familiar dilemma of today's youth. If you have nothing in hand, where do you even begin? I told him about a smart friend who had worked diligently for 5 years, but still hadn't saved 20 million VND, still lived with his parents, and still complained that it was so hard to get rich in this society. The man just chuckled, took a sip of iced tea, and said, "If you're born without assets, don't wait to acquire them before you start thinking differently. You must think differently first, and then assets will find their way to you." At first, it sounded like mere philosophy, but for nearly 2 hours afterwards, he recounted stories of survival, entrepreneurship, and overcoming poverty using only one thing: reverse thinking, a way of thinking unlike anyone else's. It's a mindset that has helped a community, persecuted for thousands of years, become one of the wealthiest and most influential peoples in the world. And that is why I'm making today's video. If you're also working tirelessly, but your money feels like water poured on a desert, or if you want to see money, failure, and opportunities differently, then congratulations, you're in the right place. Can you believe there's a community that was persecuted for thousands of years, living in poverty and injustice, yet today they've become one of the wealthiest and most influential peoples in the world? Their secret wasn't luck, nor did it begin with money. It was reverse thinking, a way to transform failure and weakness into a path to wealth. If you also want to unlock this special way of thinking, don't forget to like and follow Chillify audio station to support me. Because every week, I'll return with stories to help you change your mindset and open new paths for yourself. Jews don't fear crises, they even anticipate them to get rich. They don't hide their weaknesses but turn them into income. And you can learn to do the same, even if you only have 500,000 VND left in your account. Lesson 1, don't sit and complain. Listen to the pain of others. We live in a society where complaints sometimes outnumber kind words. At work, people grumble, "My boss is so difficult." Online, they rage, "Who can survive with rent like this?" Among friends, someone sighs, "I must have done something wrong in a past life, because money just flees my wallet as if it's being chased away." Sound familiar? But Jews approach it entirely differently. They aren't swept away by sighs. They listen to them because where there are complaints, there are opportunities. A Jewish proverb states, "Where there is lamentation, there is money." It might sound cold, but it's actually profoundly humane. Jews don't hunt for money by stifling the market. They find money by healing the pains that others overlook. Here are some compelling examples. A young Jewish man in a New Jersey working-class neighborhood didn't open a fancy restaurant. Instead, he chose to open a small pawn shop. He knew that people there needed cash, not wine and garlic bread. In Tel Aviv, a young man named Amos noticed how single mothers struggled when grocery shopping with small children. He opened an hourly childcare service, charging $2 an hour. By looking after 25 children a day, he made a living. A year later, he expanded it to 12 service points. No magic, no billion-dollar funding, just listening to others' sighs and taking action. What about you? What do you hear every day? Perhaps it's the kanji seller sighing, "Kids these days order everything online, so few customers, dear." Or maybe your friend complains, "My back hurts, but I'm too lazy to exercise." Or you yourself have grumbled, "It's so hard to find communication skills training that isn't just empty theory." These are raw gold mines. The issue isn't whether you hear them or not, but whether you do anything after hearing them, or just shrug it off with a polite smile. A very relatable story. I have a friend named Khan who never went to university. He used to be a garment factory worker in Binduong. When he lost his job, Khan spent a week sitting at an iced tea stall near the market. What he heard was, "No one will pet sit my dog when I go back to my hometown, and I wish someone would deliver breakfast to my door at 7:00 a.m. So, Khan started pet sitting for people and selling breakfast to the market vendors. Initially, it was 5 portions, then 10, sometimes up to 40 portions a day. Khan told me, "I only finished 9th grade, but I know that when people complain, they're actually asking for help. If we're observant enough, complaining is data." Data reveals needs, and needs are always the starting point of all economic value. Instead of sitting down and complaining with them, try standing up and asking what they lack. What small thing can I do for them? You don't need to save society. Just solve a small need that no one else has addressed. And that's how Jews got rich from poverty, from failure, from their very own weaknesses. Reverse thinking starts with listening. Most people listen only to react. Jews listen to analyze. Successful people listen to create. What about you? Which type will you choose? You don't need to be smarter than others, just humble enough to take a step back, listen more deeply, and then act sooner. And on that journey, sometimes you'll awaken to an equally important question: what am I doing every day? Where is the value I create flowing? You might be creating a lot of value, but you're not the one getting rich. Lesson 2. Whose pockets is the value you create flowing into? The other day, I ran into David, an old college friend. David smiled brightly, clapped me on the shoulder, and boasted, "I'm a freelance content writer, churning out 60 articles a month for an e-commerce platform. Each article earns me 150,000 VND. I quickly calculated. So, you make about 9 million VND a month? David nodded. I continued. And how much does that e-commerce platform make from those articles? David fell silent for a moment, then whispered, probably billions. I chuckled. From 9 million to a billion. The same pen, the same laptop, the same month. It's not that you're unskilled, nor are you being exploited. It's just that the value you create is flowing into someone else's pockets. This is the value chain mindset, something Jews always start with one question. Who is getting rich because of me? Ordinary people ask. How much do I earn? Jews ask. Whose wealth is the value I create contributing to? This question might sound hurtful, but it's the most powerful wake-up call for anyone working day and night whose bank account remains as thin as a sliver of the new moon. Because Jews understand very clearly that wealth isn't about hard work, but about your position in the value chain. Imagine the value chain as a river. Those at the source control the entire flow. Those in the middle receive a portion of the water. Those at the end only carry small buckets to cook for others. Think about it. If you write content, who owns the platform? If you live stream, who holds the audience? If you sell, who controls supply, shipping, and payment gateways? The question isn't, am I good? But who am I helping to become more skilled and wealthy through my efforts? A very relatable example. There was a girl named Vivian who studied graphic design. Initially, Vivian worked for an agency, designing social media posts for 8 million VND a month. After 2 years, she realized her designs were being resold by the company as templates, and clients particularly loved her unique style. So, Vivian requested to switch to part-time work and simultaneously opened a digital resource shop on Etsy, selling CV templates, posters, and social kits. A year later, her income from the shop was 3 times her old job. This time, she wasn't just creating value, she owned that value. Don't misunderstand. Working for others isn't bad, but doing so without awareness is risky. No one says being an employee is wrong. But if after 3 years you still don't understand whose wealth you're contributing to and where your deserved share lies, then perhaps you are fueling someone else's dreams with your own sleep. Jews don't hate employment. They just refuse to stay at the tail end of the chain forever. They learn to gradually move towards the source of resources, taking 3 small steps to reclaim their share of the value. Understand your current role, where your job fits within the entire system. Find points to start taking control. What core parts are you doing without sharing in the profits? Begin making small shifts, teach others, package your services, build a personal brand, develop your own channel. No one forces you to quit your job today, but you can absolutely start owning a small piece of the value chain you're contributing to. A small exercise, but with great value. Tonight, sit down and write. What is your current job? What value are you creating? Who is benefiting from that value? How much percentage do you retain, and how can your share be more commensurate with the effort you've put in? It's not easy, but trust me, asking the right question is half the battle. And if you truly want to go far, don't calculate profits quarterly. Calculate them by generations. Ordinary people think about earning more, expanding, increasing income. Jews think the opposite. Will what I do today still exist in 10 years after a generation? They don't get rich to spend, they get rich to transfer. And that's what we'll explore in the next section. 3. Getting rich not just for yourself, but for generations. There's a truth few people notice. Money can be earned quickly, but true wealth is sown only with long-term thinking. Many people focus solely on monthly revenue increases or fund percentages, but Jews ask a question that is both classic and thought-provoking. Will what I do today be something my children and grandchildren can inherit? That is generational thinking, a vision that extends beyond one's own finish line. Jews have a famous saying, "The poor think by the day, the middle class thinks by the year, the rich think by the decade, but the sustainably wealthy think by generations." It sounds grand, but it's incredibly practical. If you only operate to survive quarter by quarter, every market fluctuation will force you to start over from scratch. A true story, from a bread cart to a family dynasty. My friend Thomas started selling egg banh mi from a small pushcart near the market in 2018. Everyone thought such a job was just enough to get by day to day, but Thomas was different. In 2010, he taught the recipe to his younger brother. In 2013, he opened a second, then a third cart. In 2016, he registered the brand, Thomas's Banh Mi, and hired students to help out. In 2020, his daughter, who studied marketing, built a fan page, took food photos, and live-streamed sales of breakfast combos. Today, Thomas's family owns 6 Banh Mi carts operating across the city. 3 family members each handle a different stage, and their revenue is 10 times what it was on the first day. Thomas told me, "I'm not just selling banh mi, I'm building a career for my children." The biggest difference isn't in skill, but in vision, the generational thinking of Jews. Jews don't chase trends to ride the wave. They choose industries, models, and strategies based on 3 questions. Is it sustainable? Can it last 10, 30 years? Is it transferable? Can my descendants continue it without starting from scratch? Does it have community value and reputation? Is what I'm doing appreciated by others? Can it leave a legacy of trust instead of being sold off or liquidated? That's why, even when living in exile, forbidden, or persecuted, they still built banks, pharmaceutical companies, and century-old bakeries, because they created things that could outlive themselves. A small exercise for you tonight: try writing down 2 columns on a piece of paper. Column A, things you are doing to earn money this month. Column B, things you are planting for the next 10 years, for the next generation. If column B is empty, you might be operating quarterly, and you'll always have to start over every time a big wave sweeps things away. Important lesson: operate quarterly and you'll chase. Operate generationally and you'll lead. Jews don't open bakeries just to sell bread. They open them for the whole family to work together, to pass down skills, to build a brand within the community, to teach their children how to live steadily through competence. They don't do business to make a living. They do business to establish a lasting legacy. And that stability isn't measured by the money in their wallet, but by inheritance. But to have something to pass on, they dare to learn from failure itself. Long-term thinking doesn't mean the path will be smooth. Jews know this well. They don't fear stumbling, but they never allow themselves to stumble twice in the same place. That's why, for them, failure has never been an end, but the starting point for a new cycle of profit. 4. Failure isn't for remembering, but for profiting. Vietnamese people have a saying, "Failure is the mother of success." But frankly, many people treat this mother a bit wrongly. Some stumble once and then run away. Some bring it up repeatedly, holding onto it like a scar to lament. Some copy down the lesson but tuck it away in a drawer, never to open it again. Jews are different. They value failure, but not to wallow in sorrow. For them, failure is a mandatory tuition fee, and once tuition is paid, it must yield profit. Failure is not a sin, but failing to learn anything from failure is. A famous Jewish merchant once said, "I can lose $100,000 as long as I learn a $1 million lesson from it." It sounds expensive, but that mindset is incredibly practical. If you stumble, stop to analyze, not to assign blame. If you've made a mistake, learn to build a prevention system, don't just write philosophical statuses. If you've suffered losses, find a way to return with an upgraded version, don't see it as the end. A true story, 1 failure, 3 times the profit later. Ms. Mi opened a small eatery in District 7. Initially, it was crowded, but after 5 months, she suffered heavy losses. The reasons: uncontrolled ingredients, hiring relatives without proper procedures, and trying to manage everything alone. The restaurant had to close. But instead of being disheartened, she spent 6 months studying basic F&B management, observing models that sold only one dish, rewriting standard recipes, calculating the cost of each ingredient, and hiring a young person to handle operations. She focused on logistics and customer care. The second time around, she sold only one dish: beef noodle soup with flank steak, no lengthy menu, no elaborate decor. A year later, she had 2 small establishments, with regular customers as numerous as patients in a hospital waiting room on a Monday morning. Ms. Me told me, "That failure was actually the first blueprint for me to build it stronger next time." Jews don't hold onto failure like a wound. They hold onto it like an asset. Each time they stumble, they treat it as a code. Decipher it and you'll unlock a new door, stronger, smarter, more stable. They have an unwritten rule: fail once, acceptable. Fail twice with the same mistake, a warning. Fail 3 times and learn nothing, unacceptable. Applied exercise: rewrite failure to generate profit. You don't need a big fall to learn a big lesson. Ask yourself these 5 questions: where did I go wrong? Action, people, belief, or timing? What incorrect assumption did I make? If I were to do it again, where would I start differently? Who can I teach this lesson to? Can I turn this lesson into a product, a process, or advice? If you answer honestly, you've transformed failure into wisdom, and wisdom can absolutely become cash flow. Mistakes are like an expensive cake. You can gobble it down and choke, or savor it, pondering its flavors, then remember the recipe carefully so you never order the wrong dish again. You know you've graduated from failure when you recount it without bitterness, and when you help others avoid it, when you build something new based on the old. That's when failure becomes a profitable investment. Jews believe there's no meaningless failure, only wasted failure. You might lose a game today, but if you carry the lesson with you, you'll still win the long race. And to win long-term, you must learn to use money like an investor, not spending emotionally, but using it to serve others and to serve the future. 5. Buy what others need, not what you like. Have you ever walked into a store just to browse, then 15 minutes later walked out with a mesmerizingly beautiful item that you have no idea what to do with? If so, congratulations, you're a very normal person. We've all been willing victims of consumer emotions. A pretty shirt, a chair that fits the room, a new phone despite the old one working perfectly. And then, 3 months later, that item sits quietly in a dusty corner while your regret grows thicker. Jews are different, they buy like strategists. For them, shopping isn't an emotional act but an investment decision. They don't ask, "Do I like this?" They ask, "Do others need this? Can I rent it out, resell it, or use it to generate profit? Will it still hold value in 5 years?" A very practical example. Thomas, a young man in Ninh Binh, loved creating content. Instead of borrowing 40 million VND to buy a camera for personal photography, Thomas bought a used projector, set up a white fabric screen, and organized outdoor movie nights at the old schoolyard on weekends. Each movie night, about 50 young people came to watch for free, but drinks and snacks were charged. After only 3 months, Thomas recouped his investment and then opened 2 more small screening locations in other local areas. Thomas said, "I like cameras too, but I chose something that would make other people come, not just something I liked." Smart consumers always ask, is this an expense or an investment? They don't fight emotions, they guide them. A book with a beautiful cover, can its content be shared? An expensive course, can the learned skills generate extra income, build a personal brand? A pair of shoes you like, will you really wear them often or just keep them in the closet? Jews invest in transferable value. They buy today, but the value lives long into the future. They buy land not for a beautiful view, but for a profitable location. They buy a house not for foreign bricks, but for who will rent or buy it back. They acquire skills not for fun, but to teach them again and relaunch themselves. 3 criteria Jews always apply before buying. Can it be converted into cash flow? Sell, rent, or serve as a product foundation? Does it meet future mass demand? Doesn't need to be hot today, just essential tomorrow. Is it durable over time? A 5 million VND item used for 5 years is more valuable than a 2 million VND item used for 3 months. Jews buy like suppliers, not consumers. They buy a good microphone set to make podcasts, then rent it out. They buy a decal printer to produce labels for the handmade craft community. They acquire video editing skills to work for themselves and take on extra jobs on weekends. They don't buy to satisfy their ego. They buy to serve the market because they know money lies where there's demand, not where there are preferences. A small exercise. Next time you're about to swipe your card, ask yourself, can this serve anyone else besides me? Will this generate profit or create influence? If I need to resell it, will anyone buy it? If I use it long-term, will it be durable? If all three answers are yes, congratulations, you've just bought like a thoughtful person. But if all are no, you might have just bought a short-term joy that leaves long-term consequences. Important lesson: ordinary people spend money according to preference. Wise people spend money strategically. Jews spend money according to future cash flow. They don't need to buy a lot, they just need each purchase to generate at least twice its value. And if you don't have money yet, start with your mind. Because everyone needs capital, but for Jews, the less capital you have, the more you must invest in intellect. No one taxes brain power, no one steals ideas, no one prevents you from learning every day except yourself. *6. Lack of capital isn't a fault, laziness to think is. Once I asked a friend, "Why haven't you started a business yet?" He shrugged, "I don't have capital." I nodded, then asked, "So, have you come up with any ideas?" He was silent for a few seconds, then sighed, "I guess I'll wait until I have money to plan further." And that's precisely the kind of thinking that keeps many people poor for a long time. Jews don't wait for capital to think. They use their minds to get ahead of money. For them, if you don't have money, you absolutely must have intellect. And if you have neither, the first thing to do is to improve what's on your shoulders. Their principle is very clear: money can be lost, but the right mindset will automatically generate new money. Brain power is the only type of capital that isn't inflated, doesn't depreciate, isn't taxed, can't be stolen, and the more you use it, the more profitable it becomes. For centuries, Jews, driven away and stripped of their assets, learned a crucial lesson: if you cannot carry gold, carry knowledge. And from that knowledge, they could rebuild from scratch anywhere. A vivid story, from employee to owner, powered by deep customer understanding. A friend of mine, Thao, used to be just a sales assistant at a modest stall. No advanced degrees, no savings, no connections, just one habit: asking customers every day, "What kind of skin type do you usually have? Do you often wear makeup or go barefaced? Do you prefer moisturizing first or brightening your skin first?" After 6 months, Thao had a notebook meticulously detailing common customer groups and the products they frequently chose. After a year, she opened a small TikTok channel, reviewing products for specific customer segments. The first month saw 500 followers, the third month 20,000, and by the 6th month, she launched her own small shop selling pre-ordered goods based on her accumulated knowledge. No capital, but a profound observation mindset. Jews teach their children that if they don't have money, they must learn more than others. No need for complex academics, just learn the right things. Communication to persuade, writing to sell online, basic analysis to avoid being misled, critical thinking to not follow the crowd. In the past, learning these skills might have required entire schools and classes. Now, all you need is a phone and Wi-Fi. You can learn coding from YouTube, video editing from TikTok, sales, finance, design, and management just by following a few quality channels. Big lesson: lacking capital doesn't make you lose. Laziness to think is what holds you back. 3 things Jews invest in when they have no money: their mind. Learn anytime, anywhere. If you don't know, ask. If you're not sure, try. Time. Do small tasks to learn big ones. Working for others isn't just about living, it's about seeing how the system operates. Smart relationships. Find out who is doing what you want to do and see what they lack that you can provide. Applied exercise. Remove the "no money" label from your mind. Tonight, write down 3 sentences. 1. I lack financial capital, but what do I have instead? Skills, time, communication. 2. What can I learn in the next 30 days to gain another way to earn money? 3. Who do I know who needs what I know, and how can I help them? Then, take action, even if it's just a small step. Jews might be poor, but their minds are never empty. They don't wait for money to think. They think first, act first, prepare first. And when opportunities arise, they already have a clear map to move forward. No one is born with capital. But anyone can train their mindset if they spend less time scrolling, less being shy, less blaming. A higher level of thinking. If you have intellect, skills, and flexibility, you'll soon realize that others are also talented, perhaps even more so than you. At that point, you have two choices: envy and try to surpass them, or learn and connect to grow together. Once again, Jews choose differently from the majority. They don't try to destroy their rivals. They seek to turn rivals into teachers and enemies into partners. 7. Turn rivals into an ecosystem, a mindset of connection, not exclusion. Do you remember the feeling of losing a customer for the first time? You worked for months to build a loyal customer base, and then suddenly a rival appears, selling an identical product, heavily discounted, full of promotions, and your customers vanish as if you never knew them. What do you think then? That's a dirty trick. I have to retaliate, do it bolder, cheaper, win them back at all costs. That reaction is very human, but Jews think differently. They don't ask, how do I defeat my rival? They ask, is there a way to cooperate? It might sound naive, but it's actually the survival mindset of a community that has faced fierce competition for centuries. Jews understand that it's not the strongest who wins, but the one who connects smarter who survives longer. 2 bakeries and a community. In a residential area of Hanoi, there were 2 bakeries side by side, owned by Ms. Lucy and Mr. Tom. Initially, the competition was fierce. Their bread was identical, prices exactly the same, to the point customers were confused. Whose did I buy yesterday? Then one day, a customer asked Ms. Lucy, do you have vegetarian bread? Ms. Lucy didn't, but instead of losing the customer, she smiled and said, please go to Mr. Tom's shop. They specialize in vegetarian bread, it's delicious. A few weeks later, Mr. Tom did the same. A customer asked for garlic butter bread, and he directed them to Ms. Lucy. So the two sat down, divided product groups, coordinated break times, and even shared flour delivery schedules to save costs. The result: each side's revenue doubled, and customers no longer hesitated, but felt more professionally served by the 2 vendors, who had transformed from rivals into a small ecosystem within the neighborhood. A mindset of sharing to live, instead of competing to wear down. In modern business, competition is natural, but smart competition isn't about fighting to the death. It's about, I do well what I'm good at, and you do well what you're good at. If we combine, both suffer less. Jews don't blame a crowded market. They expand the pie instead of fighting over crumbs. They have a very interesting principle. A rival is a future version of yourself if you're willing to learn. Instead of being envious, they observe. Instead of attacking, they look for the opponent's strengths. Instead of preempting, they shake hands if it makes sense. A famous Jewish investor once said, I always invite those who have caused me to lose into my advisory board, because if they are smart enough to make me rethink, I want them by my side, not in opposition. Small exercise: turn rivals into supporters. List 3 individuals or businesses you consider rivals. What are they doing better than you? Learn that. What aren't they doing well? See if you can complement them. Send a heartfelt message, share your perspective, propose a small collaboration. It won't always work, but you'll be surprised how many people also want to cooperate. It's just that no one has taken the initiative yet. 3 common ways Jews connect. 1. Divide customer segments. Each serves a niche, growing together. 2. Divide sales channels. One online, one offline, cross-supporting each other. 3. Divide expertise. Someone good at operations trusts someone good at marketing for a new brand. Don't fear sharing a slice, fear self-isolation. In this era, trying to handle everything alone won't make you better. It will only exhaust you faster. Jews are good at networking not because they are weak, but because they know that one person can go fast, but many people going in the same direction will go farther, last longer, and be safer. Important lesson: an expansive mindset means you don't need to seize all market share. You just need to build the right ecosystem. When you see talented people not as opportunity snatchers, but as those who help you go further, you have stepped onto a different level of thinking. That is the mindset of a value network creator, not someone chasing individual battles. And if you have learned to connect with others, don't forget to connect with yourself, because you cannot pass on anything if you don't dare to live authentically. 8. Don't avoid weaknesses, turn them into assets. There's a somewhat amusing truth. Everyone has weaknesses, but everyone tries to hide them as if they were a sin. Someone who stutters avoids speaking. Someone from a poor background hesitates to share. Someone who once failed keeps it hidden as if it never happened. We are taught to be strong, to be well-rounded, to be perfectly polished. And gradually, we come to believe that only when we are perfect are we worthy of recognition. But Jews think differently. For them, weaknesses are not to be hidden but to be exploited. It may sound pragmatic, but it is truly full of wisdom, because weakness is precisely the bridge that connects. Someone who has failed will be more credible talking to someone currently failing. Someone who was once poor will be more persuasive teaching how to overcome poverty. Someone who once struggled, recounting their story of struggle, will touch deeper than any theory. A true story, from shyness to skills coach. My friend Helen used to be an extremely timid girl. She would shake so much in front of the class that she'd drop the microphone, and even for group presentations, she'd write notes and ask a friend to read them for her. Yet now, Helen is a public speaking coach with nearly 200 online students every month. What happened? Helen didn't hide her weakness. She blogged about her fear of speaking, recounted her first time speaking, and shared how she practiced every greeting, every glance into the listener's eyes. And then, people who also shared her fear began to seek her out. They didn't need someone who was excellent from childhood. They needed someone who was once weak but knew how to overcome it. Another example, from poverty to inspiration. Daniel, a young MC, grew up in a poor working-class neighborhood. He once lived with the fear of not having enough to eat. That very fear made him obsessed with fighting food waste. He started making short TikTok videos, sharing tips on utilizing leftovers and true stories about saving food. Initially, he had only a few hundred views, then a few thousand, then millions. Today, he is invited to host a national educational program on combating food waste, transforming from someone who once went hungry to an inspiration against hunger. That is the art of turning weakness into an asset. Small exercise, turn weaknesses into value. Write down 3 things you once felt embarrassed about or were underestimated for: poverty, poor academic performance, rejection, fear of communication, excessive anxiety. Then ask yourself, how did I overcome that? Who else out there is struggling with something similar? What can I recount, share, or create as a product to help them? It could be a video, a blog post, a small class, or just an honest social media post. Truly, you don't need to be the best. You just need to be someone who was once weak but now stands strong. Jews have a proverb: if someone throws bricks at you, use them to build a bridge. And they truly live that way. They don't laugh when their child stumbles. They only laugh when their child stumbles multiple times and learns nothing. Important lesson: weakness is the beginning of authenticity. Today, people connect with you not because you are perfect, but because you are real. Authenticity, when shared at the right time and in the right way, becomes trust, attraction, and irreplaceable value. And when you bravely tell your story, you embark on a very special journey, creating value from weakness, generating income from experience, and building influence from usefulness. Richness isn't just about money, but about trust, influence, and the ability to turn the smallest thing into an asset. In this final section, we will conclude this journey with one of the most powerful principles of Jewish thinking. It's what has helped them navigate centuries of upheaval and still stand strong and wealthy. The compound interest of reputation and knowledge builds intangible assets that can be carried anywhere. Jews are exceptionally good at this. They accumulate 2 types of intangible assets that no one can confiscate: knowledge and reputation, and then let them generate compound interest. Money can devalue, goods can become obsolete. But a standardized problem-solving process, a trustworthy name, a believing community, the more they are used, the stronger they become. The more they are shared, the more they are rewarded. That is compound interest, the mindset that explains why knowledge plus reputation is the original asset. Jews understand a very counterintuitive truth: don't chase projects, let projects chase your reputation. To do this, you must plant the seeds of knowledge today. A true story I heard. Ms. Tammy opened a small clothing alteration shop near the market. During holidays, customers would flock in, and she realized she was fixing the same errors repeatedly, taking in waistlines, replacing zippers, adjusting forms. Instead of just working by habit, she wrote a handbook. Step-by-step measurements, pinning, test stitching, standard times for common errors, ways to talk to customers. After 6 months, the handbook became a 15-step process. She hired 2 apprentices, trained them according to the process, and productivity increased by 50%, while redo rates decreased. Another shop owner came asking to license her process, offering 2 training sessions for a small fee. Later, she combined a basic pattern-making kit and customer communication scripts into a quick alteration shop opening. package. Ms. Tammy was no longer selling individual stitches. She was selling standardized wisdom, accumulated knowledge, and reputation that became cash flow, independent of her time or manual skill. Mr. David works in data analytics. Every week, he writes a 5-minute newsletter, one chart, one insight, one actionable question. He initially wrote it for his team, then made it public. After 1 year, he had 10,000 followers. He compiled the best issues into a decision-making handbook and launched an online workshop, Reading Data for Non-Experts. He sold it with dashboard templates. No loud advertising, just accumulated reputation as a magnet, while his main job continued to thrive, and his packaged knowledge generated additional cash flow, customers, and career opportunities. The 4-step formula: document, standardize, productize, license. Document, anything repeated more than twice, how to do it, time, risks, checklist, FAQs, write it down. If you don't write it, it's lost. Standardize, turn notes into a step-by-step process, 1, 2, 3. Set output standards, who does what, who checks, when to stop. Standardized means anyone can do it, freeing up your time. Productize, from the process, package it into templates, toolkits, instructional classes. Create service packages with prices, scope, and commitments. Package it to sell repeatedly without starting from scratch. License, grant permission for others to use it under conditions. Pay a fee, cite the source, don't resell, or resell with a share. Licensed knowledge works for you. Build compound interest of reputation with 3 daily habits. Write a learning log every day. What did I learn today? What did I try? What did I get wrong? After 90 days, this becomes a shareable knowledge base. Teach one thing every week. Write a post, record a 60-90-second clip. Teaching is the deepest way to learn and the most enduring way to build reputation. Keep small promises. Notify in advance if you'll be late. Reply when you've promised. Reputation builds from invisible details. That is the foundation for all tangible contracts. 7-day exercise, turn your work into assets. Day 1, choose a repetitive task you do, writing articles, closing orders, editing videos. Day 2, record the steps, time, common errors. Day 3, write down what a done output standard means. Day 4, create a 1-page checklist. Day 5, turn the checklist into a Notion template, Google Doc, or sheet. Day 6, try teaching it to someone and get feedback on the first draft. Day 7, post a condensed public version, invite 5 people to try it. Schedule a 45-minute session with a low fee or free in exchange for feedback. Repeat this 4-week cycle, and you'll have your first set of intellectual products. Gold filtering questions before packaging knowledge. Is this problem deep enough for many people? Are the results you create measurable? Time, cost, error rate. Can others follow it themselves just by reading the material? If not, add photo examples videos. How do you set usage boundaries? Do the license terms include upgrade paths? Version 1, N, Pro package with periodic updates. Important lesson: being skilled helps you earn a living. Standardization frees up your time. Packaging helps you multiply. Reputation helps you go the long distance. This works whether you're an employee or run a small business. Just 1 line of notes, 1 process adjustment, 1 honest share each day. The seeds of compound interest have been sown. When the money in your wallet dwindles, knowledge and reputation remain and continue to generate more money. That's a very Jewish, reverse way of thinking. Get rich with intangible things first, and the tangible will follow. 9. Wealth doesn't come from the money in your wallet, but from how you view life. If you've watched this far, let me be truly honest. Thank you. Because you haven't just watched an entertaining video. You've journeyed through a process of thinking, from listening to the complaints of others to asking where the value you create is flowing, from abandoning impulsive spending habits to learning how to turn weaknesses into assets. You haven't just watched to know, you're listening to understand. And that is the first step towards wealth. Jews don't define wealth by the money in their wallet, but by a mindset that is profitable and long-term. They might start with nothing, but their minds are always sharpened, looking far ahead and acting early. They don't ask, how much money do I have? They ask, what am I using what I have to create for others? Because they understand a simple truth: how you view life will determine how life views you. When the market struggles, ordinary people complain. Jews find overlooked needs. When they fail, ordinary people assign blame. Jews record it to profit. When weaknesses are revealed, ordinary people hide them. Jews recount them to guide others. When encountering rivals, ordinary people are wary. Jews shake hands at the right moment. When without capital, ordinary people stop. Jews learn relentlessly. What creates the difference isn't the account balance, but the number of smart questions you ask yourself. Truly wealthy people don't need mansions or luxury cars. They just need an open enough mindset not to fear change, a heart big enough to see the pain of others, eyes sharp enough to spot opportunities where others abandon them, and hands patient enough to build, even if it's just a little each day. Jews become wealthy quietly but sustainably. They don't try to prove anything. They simply focus on building value. So what about you? Where are you now, and who do you want to become? Perhaps today you're still working for someone, still struggling with expenses, still searching for a breakthrough opportunity. That's perfectly fine. What matters isn't where you are, but how you view that place. If you see it as an end, you'll stop. If you see it as a beginning, then even from square one, you can launch forward like an arrow. The true friends you need in life aren't necessarily wealthy, but those with the right mindset. You can start looking for them, or you can become one of them by listening more deeply, learning from failure instead of being ashamed, spending money to serve others, not to satisfy yourself, turning weaknesses into solutions instead of excuses, and bravely asking yourself, does the value I'm creating help anyone live better? When you start asking that way, you will become rich in your mindset, because ultimately you don't get rich by what you do, but by what you think before you do it. Jews have no magical secret, they just have a lifestyle. Not chasing trends, not living to prove something, not stepping on others to climb up. They just look deeper, think longer, and build more sustainably. And now it's your turn. You can turn off this video and go back to your old life, or you can spend another 10 minutes writing down a small idea to serve others, a failure you've experienced and the lesson from it, a skill you want to learn to exchange for real value, a friend you can connect with to collaborate or learn from. You don't need to overturn your entire life. Just one small, repeated action based on the right mindset is enough to turn onto a new path. If you found this video helpful, please like to spread the value, comment to share your story, and subscribe to Chillify audio station. Here, we don't teach you to get rich quickly. We help you become someone who can build wealth steadily, long-term, and with pride. Thank you for listening to the end. See you at the next station.